Greetings. Welcome to the Dragon Con Urban Fantasy Track discussion of Charmed Season 4. I called this panel Saying Goodbye because it is the end. And, we didn't get to do this panel at Con. So we're doing it now. So, while things are still kind of fresh in people's minds. And we appreciate everyone being here. If you are watching us live and would like to interact with us at any point during the broadcast, you can sign into StreamYard and then you can make comments, ask questions, say hello, do whatever you might want. If you don't do that, you can still watch live or at any point later on. So we appreciate anyone who is watching this now or later. So without further ado, I am going to pass this panel over to the person who was going to moderate it at Con before we were unable to do so. And that is my trusty assistant, Anna. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Tell everybody who you are, Anna.
Okay. I'm Anna Puerta, and I am a volunteer staff member on the Urban Fantasy Track, and I also have an MFA in film and television, which really only comes in handy when I'm doing these panels. That's not true. That's not true. I also use it in my day job sometimes. So, but I will let our other panelists introduce themselves. Corinne, do you want to go first?
Sure. Hi, I'm Corinne O'Flynn, and I am a USA Today bestselling author. I write urban fantasy and paranormal romance, and I'm really happy to be here.
I'm Sarah Rose. I'm a fan, basically. I don't do anything really cool. I, on a totally different topic, run a unofficial Dragon Con theater group, which we're doing a digital panel on the 18th about theater and pop culture, if anybody is interested. But
Cool.
Other than that, I'm a big fantasy and urban fantasy fan. You put it out, I'm going to consume it. So
Excellent.
that includes Charmed.
All right. Well, Carol, you already introduced yourself, so I won't make you do it again. And we can get.
I am a director. I didn't mention that, but yeah. Okay.
You are the urban fantasy
Everyone
director.
that's going to be watching
You're
this
the
knows
most important.
Anybody watching should know, I suppose, but yeah.
Yeah.
Or they've seen me often enough that it might not come as a surprise to learn that I'm okay.
All right. So the first question I had was, what did you think of the new addition to the Charmed Ones? Our new Charmed one, Kayla. And let's start with Carol.
I liked her pretty much from the beginning. I thought she was different enough from Macy that it seemed as though, I think it would have been a problem if they had tried to find someone who was supposed to be, Macy-like. And Kayla was actually, like kind of completely different. And I just really enjoyed her, her personality and the way that, so, sometimes in urban fantasy, and this is true whether it's media or books, when people who are not attuned to the supernatural find out that it exists, sometimes the reactions, you wonder, why weren't they more surprised? Or you think, oh, that was a little over the top. But I thought her reaction was actually, spot on. That it seemed to be what you would actually experience if you if you did find out that, oh yeah, by the way.
Yeah.
Sarah?
In general, I liked Kayla. Or Michaela. The character probably yell at us for calling her that.
Yes, only certain people can call her that. That's right.
Her mom, I think, was she said, or maybe it was
Right.
both of her parents are the only ones allowed to call her Michaela. But yeah, I liked her in general. I'm gonna be honest, I kind of always have a little bit of a love-hate with characters that remind me of myself. And Kayla reminded me of myself enough that in some ways it was like those when she would do certain things or react certain ways, like it was kind of like the 2020 like don't do that thing with me and
Yeah.
Kayla. But in general, I liked her. I thought she was a very believable character. As Carol said, she had genuine reaction. It wasn't just like immediate acceptance.
Mhm.
You know, I thought considering what they had to do when I can't remember the actress's name, the one who played Macy left
Mhm.
the show, they did a very good job with it. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Corinne.
I liked her a lot. I thought, you know, and I felt the same way that you did, Anna. I was worried that they were going to try to, or Carol, that they were going to try to make her too Macy-like. Like whenever you hear of a character coming back in, but then you think about how they did it with the original Charmed when they brought,
Paige.
her name escapes me. Yeah.
Mhm.
Rose, when they brought her in,
Rose.
and she was different enough, and it was kind of cool. I really liked the way I loved this character. I loved the actress. And I liked the way they handled it with how her magic sparked. And I thought it was really cool that she was an artist and that her stuff was coming to life and that it actually was really bad. So, you know, I really liked her. I thought that she was, I did not know that the show needed that refreshment, but it was refreshing. She was a good change, I thought.
Yeah. I was so worried going into this season because Macy to me was like one of the strongest
Yes.
actresses of
Mhm.
the three, and so I was pretty concerned, like, oh no, like what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
But I thought she was really great.
Yeah.
So it was a nice surprise. Um, so that brings me to talking about losing Macy. A lot of this season was about grief and how each character dealt with that grief. And did you have any sort of thoughts on how they executed that theme? Or did you relate to any of the characters specifically on how they dealt with it? And we'll start with Sarah this time.
So the grief, I thought it was very good. Harry was probably the one that I related the most towards. I mean, I know that when I lost a family member that I was really close to a few years ago, it was just like, you know, this like acceptance and I don't know, just like this overarching, you miss them. And I really felt that with Harry and stuff like that. Maggie, this whole I'm gonna beat everything up theme, I didn't necessarily quite jive with that. I think they were trying to get kind of like her connected more with Jordan and to find a way to have her connect with Jordan and kind of explore that relationship. Mel, I thought they did a good job. I wasn't sure at first, especially at the beginning of the series, and like, why is she just randomly hooking up with people? But at the end, I guess it made more sense as time went by because I realized, well, they're doing that because she's missing the connection she had with her sister. And so she's now trying to replace that with other people. So yeah, no, I thought they did a pretty good job at Macy. And Macy felt like, even though she wasn't in the season, she felt like a part of the season. They didn't just like, she's dead, you have a new sister.
Let's move on.
Which I was afraid they were going to do. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Corinne?
So I loved how they handled it. I thought I have had a lot of loss in my life, and I feel that there's and I work in bereavement in the my real life. In my second after my other life, I do work with bereaved families, and grief shows up in all those ways that they did. I mean, it looks kind of extreme when you're watching it in, a couple of episodes in a season, how it's just all compacted. But I thought that the part that they did, like, all of it was done really well. But the part that they really hit on perfectly was the two sisters completely disconnected from each other. Because my personal experience in my own personal losses has, when you're in that moment of the raw grief and everything is just open, you're completely isolated and disconnected from the world, and that's what makes it hard to engage. You can't come back in. There's no entry. There's no soft landing back in. You have to figure out a way, and it has to be deliberate. And it's when the two sisters met in the foyer or in the living room in the house, and they were like, yeah, so you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. Well, okay, so yeah. And that really was like, whew, like I've experienced those kinds of things, and I thought that was really powerful. But I thought that they handled it really well, because we can't just roll away from Maisie's loss and then go into this new exciting season of things. So that like all of those characters, like the grenade of Maisie's loss hit everybody, and I thought that they did it really fully. So I was satisfied with how they handled that.
Yeah. Carol?
I thought that what went on with Maggie went on a little too long.
Mm-hmm.
I felt as though that should have been resolved a little sooner. What she was, not in terms of real life, but in terms of the show.
Right.
It didn't seem
story.
It seemed to, yeah, exactly. It seemed to just. I think if you can't not deal with it, of course, and that they had to do that. But I think that they should have. That, as I said, I felt as though it should have been resolved a little sooner. Who she was, the fact that she was angry at herself, the fact that she really blamed herself,
right?
And that's why she was going out and punching things. I mean, anybody's going to feel like going and punching things after stuff like that. It wasn't so much that aspect of it. I just felt as though it took a little bit longer to actually come out as to why.
Yeah. Well, and the way that the writers have written this show things have been resolved much sooner than that particular line was resolved. So it did feel long compared to the other things.
In comparison, for sure.
Yeah. And at first, with Harry, I thought, Harry, you have this other job, or you have a job you're supposed to be doing, and you need to be focusing on that. But then I had to remind myself that, the others are, they're humans, they're magically enhanced humans, but they lived most of their lives as human. And so they're having some of those reactions, and Harry hasn't been a human in a while. I mean, not really,
Right.
So even though he has some of those same feelings, he's going to experience things a little differently. And at first I was, I just wanted to shake him when he was ready to take whatever that was that Roxy gave him, and that he was ready to go do his thing. And which we didn't find out what that was. And that was kind of interesting. And it turns out, we find out at the end, or we find out, a few episodes from the end of, what he can do, what he can still do, and what kind of a service he can still provide. So even though his initially kind of bothered me, it was, as I said, I kind of had to debate with myself, or say, come on, Carol, don't be so hard on Harry, he's great. And he's experiencing things somewhat differently than what the two sisters would have anyway.
It's true.
Yeah, that is. Okay, so I got somewhat of a softball one here. Did you have a favorite new character? And I'm going to follow this up with a list of some of the new characters to help you remember.
I'm going to have to open my IMDb. Please hold.
Yeah. So Ashani, Ishta and Anara, the three sisters, original Charmed. And so one of them was Ethereal Tree Lady. So she wasn't exactly new, but she
Guardian.
kind of
Yeah.
knew. And then Infinite Home Video Lady Diana was also a new character that we got, besides Kayla, of course. So, did you have any favorite sort of new character, new story, new something? And we'll start with Corinne for this one.
Is Dev new this season?
Yes.
Darn it,
Okay.
you took mine. Yeah. He was
I'm sorry,
new,
I'll pick
yes.
somebody else. I'll let me hang
No,
on.
no,
I'll have
that's
to scroll.
okay.
Dev, I think when you say like who's the favorite new character, like Dev is my favorite. He's the one that left the deeper mark for me, because it's like, oh, it was just so the teapot that sang to Kayla. Like I was like, oh my god.
Oh, I know. Oh my
He was just like, he was almost like, he wasn't silly, but he was the comic. He was the heart
Yeah, he
of
was
this season in a lot of
comedic relief.
ways. He was the soft piece, and it was just every episode, every scene that had him, we knew we were going to smile, and it felt very warm when he was around, and their romance was really sweet. Everything about his character was just really wonderful for me, so I would like the addition of him.
Yeah, and I honestly think I forgot to list him because he just felt so much a part of the group already.
He did,
like
yeah.
he just fit so well.
Yeah, it was good. He didn't feel like he was placed there for Kayla. Like it didn't feel contrived in any way. So that's why I was like, is he new? Because I really wasn't sure. So
yeah.
Okay,
Carol, I know she stole yours, but do you have
I really liked Dev, and I will say so. But I want to follow up, by saying that I know, that the episode that where he's, where he and Kayla, where she's finally deciding, okay, we're going to do this, and they're going to be a couple, and there are all these things he's saying and doing, and it's like, oh damn, they're going to kill him off.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like, okay, they're gonna, yeah, no, I mean, I had that feeling while I was
seeing it coming,
and I thought it's gonna happen. And now, luckily, it was a few episodes away from the end, so it wasn't as though we had to go on, for the whole time without it. But, and I thought, I thought he was an interesting character, but I'll take a slightly different approach and say the Blue Camellia. I really liked the Blue Camellia. The whole that whole idea, I thought was, in the place was kind of a character of its own. I thought it was, a really cool idea, and the fact that, I even thought to myself, well, what's going to happen to it now? And I thought, oh, maybe Mel will take over. And so then in the last episode, I thought, oh, that makes sense. But I just thought it was, it was such a significant. It was significant to the story they were telling in the final season. And it really did have a character all of its own, even though we could see that some of the clientele could be just as creepy and objectionable as they are in any type of bar, whether it's male or not.
You know what that reminded me of? Do you know the John Wick movies where they all have that hotel bar that they always go to, and it's like the place where they can all, it's like the common ground, the neutral ground. I was like, oh, that's kind of a cool addition to the set pieces that they use. But it's funny when you said that when you fell in love with Dev, you're like, yeah, he's going to get killed off. Anna and I have talked about this at several panels in the past. Like, I totally let go of my analytical mind when I'm watching these shows, and I just let it take me with them. I don't try to dissect and think about stuff, because you can't. Like if you watch enough of these things, it's like you start watching. Like I read books like a writer, I watch shows like a writer, and it's like I can't do that, because it's like I want to be enjoying it. So I don't think about Dev dying when I first fall in love with Dev. So I have to disagree with you, Carol.
Well, I didn't when I first fell in love with him. I'm talking about the episode where he actually died. When they were setting up some things in that particular episode, the fact that I don't remember what some of the specific.
Everything was just working out too well that episode.
Yeah.
Yes, it was like they had finally come to some kind of an agreement. They were using the R word, and things like that. And and that, and there's all this stuff and the things that he was saying to her, and how being with her had, she had made a comment about this is what you get for hanging around with the charmed one. And he said, well, actually being with you has given me more of a sense of purpose.
And you're like, oh, he's dead.
Now I have exactly. And I was like, oh my God, they're coming at it from all these angles. They are so going to kill this guy.
Oh,
but,
poor Dev.
And I'm thinking, oh, Kayla's finally getting her love. And you're thinking, yeah, he's gone.
See, that's the thing. And I really like Dev. Sorry, you didn't call him.
No, it was your turn anyways.
But,
I'm done.
Okay. I really like Dev, but my problem is I'm just kind of analytical by nature. So I thought one of two things was going to happen with Dev. He was either A, going to die, or B, he was going to be evil.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, those were the two
that's
things
something that happens a lot. Yeah.
Like, it's going to be one of these two things. And so
I thought he was going to be
his
evil
death
at
didn't
first.
surprise me.
You did?
Yeah, I thought he was going to be evil at first, but then after we got to know, I think after only maybe an episode or two, I was like, no, he's not evil. I like him.
I'm glad they didn't turn him evil, because I think that would have been even more.
Well, they did that with Jordan. They have to be careful, to repeat too much. There's only so much you can do, I guess. But I'm glad he wasn't evil.
Repeat things?
What?
Never. As far as my favorite character goes, though, it was Roxy. I'm gonna be honest.
Really,
that was my one big regret with them not continuing the series, actually. And maybe I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but I really liked Roxy because I thought she was a dynamic character. You just didn't know which way she was gonna go, if that made sense. Is she just out there for herself? Is she, when you first meet her, she just comes off as this really brass kind of, almost like mob boss kind of mentality. And then as the season progresses, we get to know her more.
Yeah.
And we see that, she's really, they developed her backstory, which means a lot to me. I like seeing characters' backstories.
I loved how they did hers with the romantic.
Yeah, exactly. And that
really
attachment and the subsequent heartbreaks with Roxy. I think she was probably my favorite character of the season, just because I didn't necessarily expect everything. Again, my analytical mind, I tend to just figure things out. And I didn't necessarily see the way Roxy's storyline went, so I think that's part of the reason.
Well, and kind of like what Carol said about the Blue Camellia being such a fabulous place. I could see Roxy and the Blue Camellia being a True Blood kind of a series, unrelated completely to the Charms. They were just so richly developed. But she was a great character.
And I was honestly just really interested in what she was, the circadian race,
having to go to sleep.
That has to go to sleep for underground for 7 years or whatever. I don't know. It was very interesting, and I kind of wanted to learn more about that. Although I guess she would have been asleep if we did get another
I think we
season.
would have seen a time jump,
right? Because
the next time we saw her,
or some magical way to turn back the time clock so they can get something.
Or they find Roxy in the other reality.
The other reality. There's always a way. There's always a way, and it's got a magical page in the back of the book.
Okay, so this season had a lot going on. I'm looking at my questions. So, but I do want to, every season has some sort of social justice aspect, or politically charged, whatever. And
Mhm.
so I do want to sort of touch on that for this season. It was the propaganda campaign from the unseen.
Mhm.
And what were your thoughts? Did you enjoy it? Did it feel too real with, the state of the world? Did it feel overdone? What did you think? And we will go back to Carol.
I didn't think it was overdone, no, and I think there are a couple of reasons for that. I think that they, you know, sci-fi and fantasy are supposed to be commentaries on our world, and you can't think about our world now without having those things come into mind. But I think the other thing that it was that it was playing to was not just the whole social justice thing, was the idea that and we've seen this happen on other shows like Supernatural, for example, where they've been told that they need to think about all the people, like the collateral damage. Think about the
Right.
things that have happened as a result of your actions, whether they're intentional or not. And what was played up by Inara / the Lost One through the unseen, was this fact that that okay, well, the Charmed Ones, they just like the power, but they don't care about anybody. And I thought it was odd that it sort of came out of nowhere, but it was a natural progression, because they referenced all of those things that had happened in the past. They talked about the faction, and all of those things that had done real damage. And so you've got somebody, you've got a big power who's locked away in a tomb, who can think up stuff. They've got a long time that they can spend coming up with a plan. But I think it did also and it seemed to especially affect Mel, the fact that okay, well, we really do need to be listening to these other people who feel as though they're not being heard, because even though that the Charmed Ones may not have been excluding them on purpose, they were
Right.
not being heard all the time, and their concerns not being taken into account. And I think that was a good lesson for the Charmed Ones. And yes, I think it's a good lesson for all of us. That just because you don't hear about something being an issue doesn't mean that it's not.
Right.
That if it's not an issue for you, doesn't mean it doesn't exist out there in the world. And without naming anything in particular, I'm just going to say that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
But I thought that they did a nice job on both of those counts in terms of the narrative of the show, the ongoing story, and what they were trying to say about the real world, which in urban fantasy, you have to talk about the real world.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was a good point about sort of the collateral damage. It kind of reminded me of the Sokovia Accords in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
And just sort of the pushback that they were getting by, like, y'all are knocking down buildings. Like, what do you think's happening when that happens?
Right. Yeah.
So, but yeah. So, Sarah, did you have any thoughts?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to preface this by saying my issue always with the new Charmed has always been like this social justice underlying theme through the whole of the new reboot. It always felt very contrived to me, like they were trying to find it. It wasn't done naturally, in my opinion. They did it because they knew it sold. It seemed more like a marketing aspect for me. That being said, this season, it made sense to me. I thought they did a very good job again with, as you said, this is a Sokovia Accords and stuff like that. You could, in Marvel, it made sense. In this, they made sense. They were able to, like, kind of bring things back by introducing characters that we had already seen, like Chloe the Fairy and stuff like that. They kind of
Mhm.
brought that back, and it made a little bit more sense, I guess, to the storyline versus just like, we're throwing this in because we know that social justice sells. At least that's how I always felt like Charmed threw stuff in. Politically correct to be politically correct. So I like this season. Overall, Charmed. No.
Wow, I disagree almost 100%.
I'm sorry.
No, you know what? That just makes the conversation interesting, and it's, we don't all have to agree. That'd be kind of boring. I don't feel like it was contrived. I think that when you look back at the shows from when was the original? The 90s?
Mhm.
Well, and
when you look
and
at
I'm
the
not
shows,
comparing it to the original Charmed.
no, I know. But if you do, when you're creating Charmed 2022 reboot or 2018 reboot, you can't help but look at what happened before and how things were done before. And I think that the show today, not just the social justice, but the representation in the show, and the fact that all of the characters are mostly BIPOC, at least the main characters.
And I'm glad they are. I
no, it's wonderful. No, I'm not
saying,
trying to.
Don't come at me.
No, I'm not.
I'm not.
I'm just trying. What I'm trying to say, my discussion point is that it didn't feel contrived at all. It felt modern. This is what the world looks like, and that we need more of this. But the social justice piece, going back to what Carol said about the flipping it and showing us the other side, like the unseen, like they're called the unseen. Like this is like, it's in so many stories, especially in sci-fi. Well, you know what? Maybe not so much. I'm trying to think of an example. It's not like just the megalomania, defeat the good people because we're evil. It's like they actually have reasons for doing what they're doing. And in the Lost one, maybe she's just megalomania and she wants the one power, but she's weaponizing the circumstances of the people who feel unseen to get them to become her warriors for this thing. And they really, I think, did a really good job. I mean, the parallels to the real world is just kind of frightening, but I also wonder if people see this and see the parallels that they didn't see before because they're watching it and they're like, oh my gosh, that's actually what we're seeing. But I liked the way that they did that, where the people, like at the moment when they're getting I can't think of the character's name, when they finally get to the place where they're going into the book and they're deciding that they're going to go and this is it, and they're all having their last moment, their little monologue, and because they are convicted in what they believe is coming for them, and so they're going for it because they don't get it here. And a lot of people feel that way, and I think that that's I don't know. I think it's realistic storytelling in a very fantastic way. I don't know. I thought that it felt good because it's not something we normally see in shows, that talk about, that are like the demons, and we're killing the demons and saving the world. So,
and I guess was my, I felt like it was through a Hollywood lens, and maybe that's what I was dislike.
Oh, I don't mean to make you feel defensive. Don't feel defensive. You're totally valid point.
Well, I wanted more of the magic, and I wanted more of like the other storytelling, and I felt like it centered too much on, like, I guess, the social aspects of it, and I guess that maybe that's what I
see. I didn't find it I didn't feel as though it was contrived, but I will say that in the first few episodes of the first season, or maybe through about the first half of the first season, although that was a longer run, so
longer season,
probably, maybe the first third, maybe about the first third of the show, I felt as though they went too far with Mel in terms of, she was a bit too strident to be the least bit, or to be, even though what she was saying was true, but she was, she was very she was just coming on way strong. Not that she shouldn't have been standing up for some of these things that she was, but it was the way in which it was done. I think it just needed to be dialed back a little bit.
Right.
And they did. It's like, so still talk about these things, but if you want people to listen, you have to
Yeah.
not yell at them all the time.
Yeah, she
You
came
know,
on strong.
and
was-
so
I think
that
it was almost like one dimensional of like that was kind of like
Right,
her
right.
thing and that was her only thing, and
Right.
they just hammered it, and they didn't give her other.
right.
Right. Yeah, that's
Oh,
true.
it
Yeah.
was just a little too one dimensional at the beginning. I know what you're talking about, Carol.
Me too.
That
That felt more contrived than anything else.
yeah.
Right.
Um,
Oh, Sarah, I'm sorry. I'm not
No,
picking
no,
on
no,
you.
I know. I think maybe I picked the wrong word to describe how I felt.
You meant
but-
like it was like so
No,
deliberate,
you
like
know.
that you could see that they were doing it on purpose. It didn't feel organic.
Yeah.
to
it didn't
you?
feel genuine.
Yeah.
It just didn't feel genuine to me, and I think that was the problem I had with it. I
Yeah.
felt like they did it because they knew it was marketable.
Okay.
Okay. So there was also a lot of discussion of what makes a family and how the charmed ones are the charmed ones, how they're, given their powers. So I guess, what did you think about the stem cells being the catalyst for Kayla's powers? And also, what did you think about sort of our origin story of the charmed ones coming into play? And we will start with Sarah this time, I think.
Okay. The stem cells, it was original. I'm glad they didn't just make her another secret.
Another
sister.
missing daughter.
Yeah.
Secret baby.
Daughters.
Another secret baby. I can't.
Exactly. It's
That
like
poor
how
woman.
many babies did Marisol have? Like,
Yeah.
and I was thinking, well, there was lots of theories bumping around. Like, is it Mel's daughter from the future that she
Right.
somehow had to drop
Mhm.
in the past? Or is it somehow Macy and Harry's daughter? But all those things
Ooh,
kind
that
of were
would've been
bumping
cool.
around in the charmed universe of what she could be before we found out about the stem cells. I
Mhm.
thought it was probably, to be honest, the most believable. Like, if you were to tell me in real life somehow I magically inherited or magically got these powers that I've never had before, that probably makes the most sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Rather than saying I have this ancestor that I didn't know about. Like, no. And I'm sorry, what was the other half of the question?
The other half was, what did you think of the original charmed ones origin story kind of deal?
That I felt like they introduced it kind of out of nowhere, to be
Mhm.
honest, for me. And so I felt like maybe they got told, you need to wrap this up because there's a very good chance you are not getting another season. And
Mhm.
so they knew they wanted to end it the way they ended it. And I'm not going to talk about that right at this second. But so they wanted to come up with an origin story. I really felt like, the original Charm story, I felt like could have been season 5. And I think if they would have flushed it out more, I think I probably would have liked it more. But I just felt like it got crammed into so few episodes that I don't know. It didn't make sense. Like Inara growing bad, and it just didn't make sense to me. So,
Okay. Corinne?
So like I said earlier, I kind of like take off my analytical head and put on my fan head, and I on purpose don't think, oh, who done it? Where we're going? Why they make that choice? But I do agree that this season felt like a shorter season than we normally had for a season, and it did feel like they knew and they had to compress to put a bow on it at the end. But I didn't feel like it came out of nowhere, because I feel like if if you're gonna tell us the story of the charmed ones, maybe it came quickly. It didn't, but it made sense to me.
Yeah, quickly might have been the
Yeah. So
term I should have used.
I
Yeah.
feel like, because it didn't come out of left field in that way, like it actually
Mhm.
kind of made some sense. But the way that they handled, okay, so I actually, when I found out about the stem cells, I was in my house and I was like, oh my God, that's brilliant. And I went and found somebody to talk to, and I was like, to my son, I was like, okay, so listen, like, you got to hear this. What a great plot device. Like, that was me. I was like, oh my God, it threw me out of the story into my writer head. And I was like, that is brilliant, because how else are you going to do this if she's
Yeah.
not having another secret baby? Because we can't keep having secret babies peppered around the country to keep replacing the dead chosen ones. So I thought, if there was going to be a way to do it where she actually wasn't a blood relative, but then she became a blood relative, the theme of found family is so strong in this show. And I think that the family you make, and so many people like live in found families, like we build our families. It's the
Dragon
family of
Con.
choice, right? Like, I have
Found
my
family right
I
there.
have my dragon patch up here, the carpet patch up here. Like, so it's one of those things that I think that really does resonate more and more with people. The more it's something we can say out loud more acceptably today, because it's not something that people could feel like, oh, I don't really, we do Friendsgiving at Thanksgiving instead of hanging out with our family for all the reasons. But found family is done so beautifully since the beginning of season 1, with the whole the we workplace, I forget what it's called, and like all the people, it just becomes the show's, the circle around these girls. So I thought they did it
Even
really well. I
Macy is
liked it.
kind of, even though she's biological, she's even kind of found family because
Yeah,
you
yeah.
didn't grow up with them. So
Right. And then the opening of this season is Kayla's 5-year cancer-free anniversary. So, and she's surrounded by this found family. So I think that I loved it. And I was gobbling it up all the way, because I just thought it was a really cool way to do it.
Yeah. Carol?
Yeah, and I thought that the fact that it combined science and magic, that's Macy all the way.
Mm-hmm.
another way to keep her alive.
You've got and that would be, it's like, of course she didn't plan it, because at that time,
Right.
she didn't know, but the fact that that it came about that way, I thought was really cool. That it was another nice tribute to that character, and I thought that was ingenious when they came up with, when they decided to do that. As far as the story of the original Charmed ones went, that one was kind of interesting in that, according to what Ashani said, they were not actually related. They were not related by blood at all. They were, so for the Charmed ones to begin as a chosen / found family rather than a biological one was kind of interesting. And but it does kind of make you wonder about the whole concept behind the whole Charmed idea, or that
Right.
whole,
Yeah.
the way that it was set up,
That's why
years ago in the old school.
More time, more episodes to explain it I would have liked it more.
Well, I think that, but at that point, if it went on too long, they might also have been beating a dead horse. I mean, it's kind of like,
well,
it's
that's
interesting.
kind of like,
I didn't find it to be too abrupt.
No, I could sense what Sarah was saying, that it, like, if we had a 22 episode season, this would have felt a little bit more easeful, but it would have been interesting if they got season 5, like Sarah said. Like, that would have been a really cool thing to explore through the whole of season 5, as opposed to just squeezing.
I just felt like, okay, in the beginning, the big bad was going to be, we all thought it was going to be the Tally Man, right? This Tally Man,
was
and
such a
all of a
creepy
sudden
dude.
he was gone, and we're jumping.
Thank goodness he took his damn spiders with him. Yeah.
Oh God.
Like, yeah. And then we get jumped into this kind of like, I don't even, what did they call it at first? The bowl thing.
The Unity Bowl.
The Unity Bowl. Yeah.
Unity Bowl. And then we got this person who ended up being one of the charmed one, I felt like it just all was kind of like, we have all these really cool ideas and now we're gonna,
Throw 'em
and
all
I
in.
guess that was my issue with it. Like, I would have liked more episodes to flush everything out.
Yeah.
Well, that does beg the question, though. You wonder if they knew about this. I mean, they
Right.
obviously knew before the finale aired because it's.
Mhm.
When I was watching the actual recordings, it did say series finale,
Mhm.
so they knew before it aired. But you know, at the outset,
They didn't.
if
Right.
if they had a feeling, and a lot of times they do, you know, showrunners and producers and everybody have an idea that, okay, this might be our last go at this, and we may have to wrap things up. And then, oh, by the way, you're only getting 13 episodes. Then
Yeah.
it's like, oh, dang, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how that all worked for this particular season of this particular show.
Mhm.
But you know, I think that was, you know, that was part of the reason why that happened. That if they were going to have these original Charmed ones play a significant role, which they
Mhm.
did,
Mhm.
then you know we had to get them in there somehow.
Right.
And you know, I thought they actually did a pretty good job of it. I think it would have been interesting to hear more, but I thought
Mhm.
They did.
a pretty
It
good
was
job
satisfying
of,
enough.
I
Yeah.
There
get
was no plot hole
Yeah.
there. It was all. I
it
felt like I
wasn't a
got all the
plot hole,
information.
though. I would have liked to see it
More.
Fleshed out
more
more. Yeah.
stretched out. I think part of the reason, and they probably did know that this was happening, or at least had a very good sense, is number one, well, mass CW cancellations. They were kind of the first of that. We didn't really
well, they
know.
knew that this sale was impending. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they probably got an idea of that. But also season 3, you know, season 3, a lot of fans were actually surprised we got a season 4 because a lot of people had complaints about season 3 just being all over the place. So I think maybe they thought, well, we're going to give them a shorter season, probably after they were already writing the new season. And the showrunners knew, okay, so they're giving a shorter season. That's a sign that we're probably getting canceled.
I would love to know, like, if there's somebody who knows that has a connection to one of the writers, like when they found out and if it affected what they did, or if they knew from the start. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if that's been asked. I know there's been a lot of questions about the writing specifically of the end and how it came to the end, but
Yeah.
Right. Because I know when we found out about the non-renewal, but I don't remember when they were filming.
Yeah. So I do want to, let's jump into the end since we only have a few minutes left. And I mean, there's a lot of sort of happy ending moments.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's being transported from home video into the Halliwell Manor,
which was so cool.
Yeah.
I just kind of want to hear everyone's
that.
thoughts about the end and all of its facets. I mean, we have so many things happen in that last episode. Like, how do you even talk about all of them? We don't have time.
No.
But they do save the day. They all get their happy ending, and then they travel to a parallel universe. So
yeah,
who wants to start with this one?
You know, I'll start. So okay, I will start at the end of the end. Them going to the Halliwell Manor and opening the door, and then the door shutting on its own as if Prue was standing there. That was so for the fans of the earlier season of or the earlier iteration. I really liked it. It was just like, oh, and they didn't know where they were. I was like, guys, wake up!
You're
you know, there
Yeah.
you are.
There's
But
I
thought that like if you were gonna finish a show and know that you were done, and the people that were watching the show are the true believers and the true fans and they're already here for it, right? You don't come all the way, you don't make it past all the objections to the remake happening and then stick with it all the way through and not be a completely true blue, right? So I thought that was a really cool Easter eggy fun way to really just say thank you to the fans. That's what I thought that was.
Okay. I looked it up because I wanted to know if they thought that they were going to get a season 5 and that like
Oh,
if they were going to actually go.
go
And
there. Yeah.
I read an interview where they said that if they had gotten a season 5, they were working out how they were going to live in that universe. And
Wow.
I am just like, I don't know
Ha-
that any of the like original Charmed cast would
Yeah.
have participated.
Nope.
Yeah.
I
Nope,
don't think
they
they
would
would have.
No.
But like
I
They
don't know
were
that
mad
they.
enough at that point.
I almost like it better that they were canceled like with this ending.
Mhm.
That's what I
Not
mean.
that
I don't
like
think
it better
that
that they were canceled in general.
I it w-
But yeah.
dive
It's like
into that.
I don't know.
into
I don't
that
know how
place.
they
It
would have
only
done it.
works because it's. I think it's, and it's not the whole thing allowed, but they're allowed to say goodbye at the door. They can't live there for the next season. That's not, it doesn't have the same flavor.
Effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Here's the thing about the Hollywell Manor thing. As a fan, I loved it. Okay. I was like,
Mhm.
they finally did it after so many people are asking for so many times because, like, you know, fans of the original Charmed, one of their biggest complaints that I saw was they kept borrowing storylines from the original Charmed without actually having one for the original Charmed. So that in of itself, and I mean, there was a lot of press. The original, especially Holly, was very vocal about the fact that they were not invited to be a part of this show in any way. They were upset.
Mhm.
And because of that, I don't think they would have done anything. And I can't remember. Brian talked about during the panel how they actually called him in to read for a character that wasn't Leo. And he was like,
Really?
No.
no,
Huh.
that's not gonna make sense.
How
Like,
weird.
Yeah, at the
explain that.
beginning, before the like before season 1.
Right.
Yeah. And I think by the time they were gonna get to if season 5, I think they probably would have had a really hard time as far as the fans go, trying to
Yeah.
convince them that they were in that universe without having the original cast. And I really don't think the cast would have been willing to participate. I don't think you could have paid them any amount of money to participate because they were so mad, and the original writers were so mad. I mean, the original writers, if you read about it, were mad that they even put Hollywood Manor in the end. They're like,
Right.
you stole so many storylines from us for this show, and now you're stealing our show for your literal last scene. As a fan, I love the last scene. As a writer part, I can understand why they were mad.
Well, I think that's a way to pay, it's an homage to the show without having to actually say anything. For people who had never seen the original, they might have thought, "Oh, that's cool. I wonder what's supposed to be special."
I wonder where that was going to go. Yeah.
It was an Easter egg.
But then, so then they'd have to look it up, and it might take fans back to the original show. But personally, I would rather not dwell too much on the
I know
the friction, that aspect of it. I would like to see us not discuss that.
Sorry.
Okay. But I just wanted to jump in and say that, but I'm not sure whose turn was it? Was it Corinne?
No, you can go ahead, Carol.
You can go ahead. No, I liked I said that I thought it was a thank you to the fans. I thought that.
Okay.
But like when Sarah talked about like if that was going to be the end of going into season 5 and they were planning on doing it, like I don't know that doesn't even feel like it's a possibility, but it works because it was the end and it was the last. Yeah, it was the last.
I
scene.
agree.
Well, it would have been interesting if they could have gone back and forth, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could have. I mean,
because they've got that door.
Yeah, but how do they get back to the door? I think is
we have magical ways of doing all kinds of things.
Yeah, of course.
Book of Shadows exists in the Hollywood Manor.
Right on the other side.
Yeah.
It
would
would
have
be
been fun, though.
interesting.
But
Yeah.
What did you? But
whose turn was it? I lost track of who
I
was
think it's
supposed
your
to
turn,
actually be
Carol.
going.
I think
your
it's I
turn.
think it's your turn, Carol.
Well, oh, it is. Okay.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, I loved that aspect of it. I thought that was really cool because I thought it was it was especially, as Sarah Rose said, it's, especially nice for the fans
Mhm.
to, to be able to experience, just that little glimpse without having, and saying, okay, this explains a lot. This is how they coexist. There could be two at the same time. And I did like the way that, as I said, Mel was going to be hanging out at the bar, and
Mhm.
finally Maggie and Jordan got their, act
Yeah.
together, because, oh, come on. I mean,
Right?
seriously.
Yeah.
That,
Well, they
that
won't be
was
literally
a little
Finally.
two.
Yeah, it's like, come on, people.
yeah, it just,
Get with the program.
it's like, come on, get past that. I thought the fact that Harry was going to continue doing what he was doing, he was going to stay as a necro later, which just sounds wrong. I mean, that term just sounds wrong. But he was going to continue to do that so that he could help the other people in the magical community. And might I just add, I'd love to put in a plug for the pixie Chloe. I absolutely adored Chloe. I thought
I
she
did
was
too.
so sweet.
Yeah.
She
I
was
was
just
so happy
like,
they put her back
kind of
in.
it's like she's kind of your picture of what a fairy would be,
Mhm.
So I thought that was that was cool. She was just so sweet natured and everything. But and the fact that that Jordan was going to work with them, and that Harry was going to continue to help people in the Vale. I kind of got mixed up for what I was saying before. I had the names mixed up. And Harry finding something that he can do to give himself purpose again. I thought was a good thing. I did like the way that it ended, for all of them. And
Yep.
Kayla's got she finally feels at home enough at the house to have a studio, and
Right.
all these things. I thought it was
Mhm.
I just thought it was a nice send off for a show that I would have enjoyed seeing continue, but I'm
Yeah.
not so sure I would have wanted that season 5 scenario either, unless it was a we're going back and forth thing. And we have our good friend Renita here, who often, okay, oops, I missed the.
Yeah. I thought that was
No.
interesting.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
thinking-
Grandchildren, especially since we know the house is still what?
So she said,
I got to bring it back.
The house
maybe
is still
it was my
there.
computer,
Come on,
but
yeah.
not necessarily the original Charmed ones, but
Their children or grandchildren. Yeah.
one of their children or grandchildren.
Yeah,
because
one of their children, especially.
Oh, that would be kind of cool.
because they did have like adult Wyatt, and I mean they had their adult children there in the 90s, adult Chris and adult Wyatt. So like they could
Grandchildren.
have grandchildren at this point.
Yeah.
That'd be
So
kind of cool.
yeah, that would be really interesting if that was the
I didn't think about it that way.
the
Yeah.
spin. But I mean
Yeah.
it's true because it's been a long
Well, and it was kind of cool that they're when they stepped inside and like the door shut, we don't know who closed the door. So it
Right.
leaves all that open to like your own imagination. So that I liked that idea about the grandchildren or the children. That could be.
Well,
That could be.
the thing too about that house is that in the old show, that house was a character of its own. Anyway, I mean, so that could easily have been the house closing its own door at that point.
Yep.
Because the first time in the old show, the first time that God, I can't even think of his name, Chris. When Chris comes to, when he first shows up, at the end of his first scene, he does the same thing to close the door. So,
Oh, okay.
that was,
It's a long time ago. I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
I mean, since
rewatching with the OG.
So,
Mm.
but
No,
I
it
thought it
great.
was a nice send off. A nod. We got a nod for the fans. I think the show did a good job, all in all, of forging its own path.
Mhm.
And I think that's important when you're doing any kind of a reboot. You have to do that, and I think they did a good job of it.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah. And I think they did a great job wrapping it all up in the end. It was good.
It was. Yeah.
Okay, well, we are at our time. And so if everyone wants to just go around and you can share where people can find you on the interwebs or in real life if you're going to be somewhere.
Just randomly, yeah.
Well, I mean, at a convention, if you're going to be at an upcoming convention.
Right. Well, I live at.
So you have to address.
Okay, what's that address? Let me write that.
I am CorinneO'Flynn.com, and I'm Corinne O'Flynn at everything where you would try to find me. 2 N's in both of my names. That's it.
All right. Sarah?
You can find me hanging out on the interwebs. Probably the best place to find me right now is the DragonCon unofficial. DragonCon Theater and Musical Lovers unofficial Facebook group. We are, as I said, we're just a completely fan-derived group and completely not related to urban fantasy, but we're all geeks here, so
There's musical episodes in urban fantasy.
Yes. That could be a whole panel all by itself.
That's right. How does musical theater
is pop culture?
Yeah.
But and as I said, we are doing our first digital panel discussion about theater and if it belongs in pop culture or if it's part of pop culture next Friday. So not this Friday, the following Friday on 18th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be on YouTube as well as Facebook. So I'm co-hosting it with Gary Mitchell, who is also one of the runners of the group from Sci-Fi Classics group. So find us there.
Great. And Carol, you can sign us off with all of our DragonCon urban fantasy things.
All the little details. Well, first, I'd like to thank Anna for doing this, and for all of you, for both Sarah Rose and Corinne, being able to join us at this time. A couple months later than everyone had expected to be discussing the show, but
we don't have to wear masks when we do it virtually.
You don't have to what?
We don't have to wear masks when we wear it virtually.
No, that's true. That's true.
But I had a cute one that was my outfit.
Yeah. If it's part of whatever, yeah. And I want to thank Renita, and she says she enjoyed it and thanked us, and she also said the Greek Geeks United. Yes, okay. We can all agree with that. Yes, and thank you to all of our viewers who may be watching now or who will be watching later. We appreciate you being here very much. Mm-hmm. And you can also tune in at the end of the month on the 29th to see, we're going to have a discussion about Fate, the Winx Saga, which sadly was, the word came down a couple days ago that show was canceled. So since con is so far in the distance, we are going to do a panel now while it's still fresh in everyone's mind. So that will be right here in the same place. And next month we will have, on December 8th, we will have our Buffy Watch season 3, and the following the following week, I will have an author interview with David B. Coe. So we've got a busy next few weeks. We're taking it a little slower during the holiday season. So thanks to everyone for being here. And you can, if you are watching this, you probably know about our Facebook page anyway. If you go to Facebook, plug in DragonCon Urban Fantasy, that's what you will come to our page, and the same thing on YouTube. So thanks to everyone for taking part. Thanks to the wonderful panel. Many thanks to Anna for being available to do this, after con. We appreciate it. And good night, everyone.
Good
Good
night.
night. Thank you.
Bye.